Welcome to Everything Life Coaching with John Kim and Noelle Cordeaux, founders of JRNI Coaching. If you're inspired to begin your own life coaching practice or just want to learn a little bit more about what it's all about, visit jrni.co. That's JRNI.co.
Hey guys, on today's episode, we're going to talk about co-creating the relationship. And of course, when we talk about the relationship, we're talking about your relationship with the client. Noelle, good morning.
Good morning. Yes, we're talking about the relationship with a client. And like so many other things, you can apply the science of life coaching to many different relationships in your life. So I would like to invite everyone to imagine how taking the stance of co-creating a relationship can work out in all different facets of your life.
Can I just say one thing off the subject before we continue?
Yes.
So I'm in a hotel room, sitting on a toilet, doing a podcast, and I love the fact that our podcast can be done anywhere, and that because of my ability to be mobile as a life coach, that I could do things like this. And I just had that revelation as I was logging on to podcast with you.
Yes, I love that. So guys, you should know that I typically podcast from the exact same place at a table in my house, and John sits in closets. He sits
Toilets.
on toilets. He sits in really weird places. So it's always an adventure.
We have something called office hours at JRNI Coaching where I pop in on a Facebook Live, and I've been known to do them behind dumpsters in dark alleyways all over the place, which the life of a life coach, you know?
I know. It keeps it interesting and it keeps it honest, which I appreciate.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
let's talk about co-creating the relationship. Two components.
Yes. And so where does this come from? Let's start there. This comes from the ICF, the International Coaching Federation, which is the organization that we are accredited by. And so as we're working through these are the professional standards that you learn as you go through the credentialing process to become an ICF credentialed coach. And these are the standards that we train at JRNI. So there is a standard of co-creating the relationship, and that has two parts. The first one is establishing both trust and intimacy with the client.
Right. And this is the beginning of everything. I mean, this is what I call soil.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so when I was saying, we can use this for any relationship in our life. Imagine how relationships are either enhanced or detracted from when there's not trust and intimacy that's established.
Right. I mean, everything starts with trust, and also if you're active on social media, in today's world, the building trust actually happens before you even meet your client.
Oh, yes, very much. And that's through sharing your story, through being authentic,
Yeah, how
and
you show up.
how you show up. So, the actual definition here of establishing trust and intimacy centers on your ability as a coach to create a safe and supportive environment. And the outcome of that environment in a coaching relationship is that the production and active production of mutual respect and trust.
So how do you do that in the beginning with a client? This is a question I get all the time. Um, when you're in practice, how do you actually start building trust and intimacy with the client?
Yeah. So the way that I roll with it is when somebody wants to work with me for the very first time, before that I ever take them on as a client, we have a conversation. And we just talk about our lives, how we see the world, a little bit about what the person wants to do. And I might throw some coaching ideas out and say, this is a technique I might use. And I actually ask the client, do you feel comfortable talking to me? Do you feel like you're able to open up to me? How is the experience of this conversation for you?
Has anyone ever said no? Has anyone ever said, actually, I don't?
Well, sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Yeah.
there is just a personality conflict between two people, and that can be due to a lot of different factors. I tend to talk really slowly. I'm very soft spoken. If somebody has a very loud, booming voice and they talk very, very, very quickly and very, very, very rapidly, I've learned over the years that person and I are probably not going to be a good fit as coach and client, because client will get frustrated that I don't match that communication style.
As you were just saying that, you were describing me because I am actually loud. I speak very fast. I have this problem of interrupting people, and you're the complete opposite. You are very thorough. You speak very calmly. So I would not be a good fit for you as far as client.
No, I don't think so. And
Right.
you know, and like, listen, like we're wonderful business partners, we're wonderful friends. You know, we've had exchanges over the years where like we talk about stuff, but you get impatient because I go so
Yeah.
slow. And it's just true. And so let's sit with that for a second. Because I think that when we live in community with others, when we live in professional relationships with others, there's this expectation that we can't say things like that without hurting other people's feelings.
Right, right. I like how direct you are. Like you said, I actually just asked my clients flat out. Do you think we're going to be a good fit? And I think a lot of coaches, they're afraid to do that, right? Because that's such a direct question. It feels weird.
It's such a direct question. And that's also part of my style in coaching and in life.
Hmm.
I am a ridiculously direct person and I really like to deal in fact. And if you can't handle that, it's not going to be a good relationship.
Yeah, and I gotta say, so I appreciate directness, and I think the client will also not only appreciate that, but when a coach is that direct, it actually demonstrates confidence. It actually
Mhm.
shows that the coaches has boundaries.
Very much so. And this is, again, something that I have the luxury of having developed over a period of 10 years of engaging in this work and really working on self regulation, really working on dropping down into a stance to engage in active and deep listening, listening for words, listening for emotion, listening for feeling. And right in there is the ability to not take words at face value and to say there's something deeper here. What's really going on? What do we need to know? What don't we know?
Which, by the way, that's a practice, and
Yes.
such a valuable tool. And what Noel's talking about is looking deeper, so you're not just listening to the words, but you're um, taking in energy, body language. Words are such a small component of communication.
Very much. And most of the time, people believe that they said something different than what they actually said, or they hear something different than what was actually said in 80% of exchanges. And so that's just something that we all need to hold in our minds as we navigate the world in this way. So, the good thing about having competencies around this is if you're listening and saying, well, geez, I have absolutely no idea how to start, we have actual ways for you to start. So when we're looking at trust and intimacy with a client, number one is showing up with genuine concern for the
Mm-hmm.
client's welfare and future. Genuine concern. So that can show up in a lot of different ways.
And yeah, and I gotta say, when you do this for a long time, and it doesn't matter if you're a coach or you're a nurse, any business where you're helping other people, it could turn into a business, and over time, you could start to kind of fade out and not show genuine concern. Like after a while, you could be on autopilot, so you got to really be aware of that.
Mhm. Absolutely. And then the next point is demonstrating personal integrity, honesty, and sincerity. And
Mm,
this feels like it should be really straightforward, but it's actually tricky when you're first starting out as a coach because you're balancing the desire to be honest and authentic and truthful with the simultaneous valid and appropriate desire to show up as a coach, to perform well, to bring clients into your practice, to gain traction. And sometimes you overperform. Sometimes you put forth content that isn't in true alignment. Sometimes you might question yourself on your sincerity. And that's okay. It's part of the process.
Yeah, I think it's about being aware of it, not so much bashing or judging yourself for it, because as coaches, we're also human, and you gotta give yourself some slack.
Absolutely. And with all of this work, it's a progression. So there's no way that we can hold young coaches to the standards of mastery. The standards of awareness are really where we need to land. Um, Awareness and being able to manage yourself in a way that you can show up and do the work. Um, the next one is this one's pretty easy and straightforward. It's keeping agreements and promises.
Yes, absolutely. So, contracts, verbal agreements, right? All of that stuff.
All of that stuff, doing what you say you're going to do. If you say that you're going to provide a client with an introduction, to do so in a timely manner. If you say, "Oh, I have this great article for you," make sure that you send it in a timely manner. And then keeping on right down the line, we have, and this is something that I think is really important to talk about, and to talk about how we figure this stuff out, is demonstrating respect for a client's perceptions, learning style, and personal being.
So, what do you mean by that? Do you mean holding a non-judgmental space? What do you mean by demonstrating respect? How do you show that in behavior and action?
Yeah, so you and I are really great classic examples of people who do things very differently. I like to read. I read extensively. If there's something that I need to learn, I come at it from a perspective of empirical fact and academic citation. You're somebody who's an experiential learner. You learn things by jumping in, by doing them, by playing with the Legos and forming your own conclusions.
What is reading again? What I've never heard of that.
It's
Exactly.
so ironic for a writer, John. It's so ironic. Um, but but learning styles don't have a value assignment. Like, it is true that John is an experiential learner. It is true that I am an auditory and visual learner. And so if someone is coaching either one of us, if I were helping John to design actions, they would be sub goals and actions in the arena of experimentation, saying and doing, trying on new behaviors. If someone were coaching me, it would be more learning goals as sub goals. Read this book, come back with data. What did you learn? And then that would then inform action. So this is how you do it in coaching.
Yeah, so knowing that about your client and then adjusting to them based on
Adjusting
what you
to it.
know.
Yeah, and taking as a premise that the way that you learn might be different than the way your client learns, and to not hold an expectation for them that's not going to fit. So the next piece up is looking at championing new behavior, including risk taking. This is huge in coaching, and we've talked about this a little
Yeah.
bit before. And when you're working on becoming a coach, one of the things that you have to evaluate is your own relationship with risk.
So are you saying to not put your own, whether it's fear or your own definitions of risk onto your client?
Yes. And
Yeah.
it's a little bit of a deeper cut. So, if you are somebody who is very comfortable with risk and has done a lot of risk taking in life, you might forget how scary it is to get used to taking risks in life. And
Yeah.
you might disproportionately encourage your client to jump before they're ready. On the other side of the coin, if you're somebody who has a strong level of discomfort with risk, and your client wants to move forward, you might unconsciously levy fears on them that they don't need.
Right, right. So, like, indirectly, affecting your client, in a way that isn't their truth, but it's because of your
Yes.
story. Right,
Yes.
absolutely.
Very much so. And then finally, when we're looking at trust and intimacy, it's this thing that we've been talking about so much, and it's asking permission.
Mhm. Mhm. So literally asking permission, right?
Literally asking permission. And thinking about it conversationally, you think about the way that you guys who are listening actually go through the world every day, where you're listening to someone talk and it's really common to be thinking about what you're going to say next versus what that person's actually saying. This is a practice that forces you to pause, think about what the person has said, and ask permission if you want to introduce something or ask them about their life.
It's super respectful. It's actually what's missing in the world.
Yes, very much so. And so this is, a challenge to bring this idea of asking permission to your everyday life and just see what happens.
And listen, as I go through this real quick, I'm gonna give you guys the bullet points. Think about not just your client, but also think about your relationship. So, this applies to your friendships, your, relationship with your partner, your boss, anyone. And so, real quick, shows genuine concern for the client's welfare, future. That's one. Two, demonstrates personal integrity, honesty, and sincerity. Three, establishes clear-cut agreements and keeps promises. Four, demonstrates respect for the client's perceptions, learning style, personal being. Five, provides ongoing support and champions new behaviors and actions, including those involving risk taking and fear of failure. And then finally, six, asks for permission to coach a client in sensitive and new areas. So this is why I say it's soil. This actually can apply to any relationship.
It can apply to any relationship, and it just makes us better as we show up in the world. And I'm excited to keep working through these as we podcast through them, because these are skills that we can use for ourselves. So even just thinking about asking permission, as I've been working with this as a practice for myself, an outcome that I really didn't expect is that I'm learning when I need to give myself permission to not be present in a certain conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't think about that. So actually,
Mhm.
asking yourself, giving yourself permission. Sure.
Yeah, and thinking about the very different diverse contexts of life that people are in. I'll give you an example. So, I run Journey. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that come through the Journey platform, the Journey organization. So the volume of human exchange and human interaction that I go through on a daily or weekly basis with very sensitive issues that are stressful and emotional is pretty high compared to the
Yeah,
average bear, right?
sure, sure.
And I have a lot of really great, absolutely wonderful, brilliant friends who right now want to have very intense conversations
Oh, of course.
about everything that's happening in the world. And usually I'm a person who wants to get right in there. And right now, I've had to say no thanks. And
Right.
I just don't want to do that right now. I need an actual break.
Well, because you're usually the person that wants to get right in there, and also you're able to provide a safe space. I'm sure that all your friends and maybe family and whoever else, they're so used to coming to you. Here they come,
Here
and you're
they
like, okay,
come.
I'm exhausted.
Here they come. And I've actually offered that to my friends and saying, hey guys, before you just like lean in on me, can you ask me if I'm ready to receive it first?
Oh, I like that. Right.
Hmm.
So you actually setting that boundary and asking them to ask you.
Yes, because it may be a yes, it may be a no. Who knows?
That's also going to be telling on the kind of friendships you have, because if people aren't willing to do that, then maybe they're not good friends or don't have the tools to be your friend.
Oh my goodness. I had a hilarious conversation with my father the other night. We were on the phone. He didn't abide by the boundary of asking permission, and he really gave me a hard time about like 5 things that were completely beyond my control, like
Hmm.
100% beyond my control. And I said, "Dad, I hear your concern, but all you're doing is beating up on me, and none of this is
Mm,
helpful right now."
mhm, mhm.
And his next sentence was, "Well, this is just how I show I love you."
Right.
And I
Right.
was like, I love you too. Next time you can just say that. Like,
Yeah. I mean, I actually like that. I like that he said that.
me too.
Yeah.
It was really
Awesome.
cute. It was really cute. And it's like, it's like, guys, these are the kinds of exchanges that you can be having in order to draw some boundaries, ask permission, protect yourself, preserve your energy, and do better by the people around you.
Yes. Love it. Great reminders this morning.
Awesome. Well, John, we won't keep you sitting on a toilet for much longer.
Right.
And everybody, we have so many awesome people coming into Journey Coaching right now. So if you are looking for a community to have these kinds of conversations with others, give us a call. We'd love to hear your story, and we'd love to help you find out if coaching is the right path for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got to also say, one of the things that I love about Noel and I is that is our differences, our contrast. And so, if you're interested in coaching, you can also be the type of coach that sits on toilets and does podcasts, or in her lovely home. So, the spectrum is wide, and so give us a call, and we can talk about it, and we'll see you in class.
Ready to cut through the BS of becoming a coach? Snag John and Noelle's 6-step guide to becoming a life coach at jrni.co/everything. That's jrni.co/everything. If what you've heard here today speaks to you and you want to learn a little bit more about becoming a coach, visit jrni.co, jrni.co. We've graduated nearly 1,000 coaches and offer vibrant community, strong lifetime support, and world-class coaching education. We're fully ICF accredited and look forward to watching how you use coaching to make a bigger impact in the world around you.